Hi, it's me, and welcome back to another new Limbus Company New Ego overview. With the update adding Part 3 of Canto 8, we also now have full access to every ego on the Battle Pass for this season. There's always a question with the beginning of a new season as to whether or not purchasing the paid Battle Pass is worth it, and while I genuinely think it's pretty much always the most cost-effective thing to purchase in this game, this season in particular has 2 fewer ego than the previous 4 Battle Passes. That said, it has a bunch of extra non-ego resources to compensate, which, in my opinion, actually makes it more worth it than usual. You see, ego are very situational tools no matter what, and while they can be very powerful, they are also very expensive to upgrade, and you don't get to use them too often in most content. So before we get into the individual new ego, let's talk about the other rewards. The most important part of these battle passes is usually how many pull tickets you get from them. You pay 10 pulls worth of paid lunacy to unlock the paid battle pass, so knowing how many pulls you get in return is pretty good information. You may be surprised to hear that it's pretty evenly split between paid and free. When you combine the lunacy and pull tickets, the free pass has 20 pulls, and the paid pass has another 40, including a 10 pull ticket with a guaranteed triple-aught ID from this season. Paying 10 pulls worth of lunacy for 40 pulls is a pretty good deal, even ignoring everything else you get. There's actually more nominable ego shard crates in the free pass than the paid one, whereas the paid pass has more random ego shard crates. Keep in mind that this is because upon completing the pass, those who paid for it will earn triple the amount of nominable ego shard crates than those who don't every level. When it comes to leveling up and uptying your IDs, this pass has 2 ID takeoff uptie modules, with one being free and the other being paid. Uptying can cost a lot of thread, and the paid pass has way more loose thread than the free one as well. Getting another free way to get an uptie 4 ID is really helpful. The free pass has 93,000 XP in XP tickets, and the paid pass adds another 76,000's worth, but exclusive to the paid pass is a level boost ticket that automatically raises a single ID to level 50, which is about another 166,000 XP, meaning the paid pass is also weighted heavily for XP gain. In general, you get more of the unique rewards from the paid pass, but more of the general stuff from the free one. One thing you will not find in the free pass, however, is 150 universal uptie ego shards, which are just regular ego shards that can be used to uptie or thread spin any ID or ego, but can't contribute to sharding a new ID or ego. While they can help, I wouldn't say you should use them as the definitive reason to pay for the battle pass if you want it. Even I just spent all of them right away on a single ego for Sinclair. Everything else in the paid battle pass is either extra in Keflin or vanity rewards, which, while they can be nice, are not as useful in a practical sense for determining whether you should buy this. Use your own judgment on them and remember that they have no effect on your gameplay. Moving on now to the actual big rewards, there are 2 ego for both the paid and free battle passes individually. The free pass features Red Sheet Don Quixote and Tears of the Tainted Blood Sinclair, while the paid exclusive ego are 100-footed Death Maggot Ishmael and Tears of the Tainted Blood Hong Lu. If you're a Rupture player, you will really like this battle pass, as every one of these ego has Rupture written on it, and 3 of them are even Gluttony ego. Nowhere is that better displayed than in Red Sheet Don Quixote. It comes with a new status in Twisted Curse Talisman. It stacks up to 10 and expires on turn end, and when it expires, it inflicts 1 attack power down next turn for every 4 of it on a unit, up to 2. Using the ego multiple times does not allow you to stack it more in a single turn, which is important because at the maximum stack, if you deal 30 or more damage to that enemy in a single hit, they take gluttony damage by their Rupture potency and gain 1 Rupture count. This activation can only occur once per turn on each enemy, but it is good for your Rupture infliction. Red Sheet is a 16 to 24 rolling / gluttony ego with 2 coins and 3 attack weight, and it occupies the He slot. It's tied with Otis's Dimension Shredder for having the highest overall cost of any He ego at 25 SP and 9 Sin resources total, which while restrictive is not enough to make it any less desirable for Rupture teams. The first hit inflicts 4 Twisted Curse Talisman, guaranteeing at least 1 attack power down next turn, and increases based on your Gluttony Resonance, meaning you need 6 Gluttony Resonance to inflict the maximum amount of the status. If you do inflict that maximum amount, this ego will basically always activate the Gluttony Burst of the status effect, making it Rupture count positive by 1 across up to 3 targets. This is because the second coin deals bonus damage by the talisman stack, as well as inflicting Rupture potency and count in amounts that cap out at 8 talisman stacks. So you only actually need 4 Gluttony Resonance if you're not looking to trigger the extra Gluttony damage and 1 Rupture count. The passive allows you to inflict 1 defense level down on landing a crit or hitting an enemy with 15 plus Rupture. While this is nice, it doesn't really factor into what makes this ego so powerful. The Corrosion is a 26-6 rolling / Gluttony ego with 2 coins and 3 attack weight. It is almost the same, except it inflicts 2 more Twisted Curse Talisman by default, meaning you only need 4 Gluttony Resonance to trigger the burst. Its damage conditional on the second coin is also double that of the Awakening, and the high SP cost means you at least have a 50-50 chance of hitting double tails if you use it at 45 SP. That said, it is a little bit cost prohibitive, and it isn't like Rupture teams struggle to reach 6 Gluttony Resonance anyways. The best user of this ego is Lobotomy Ego Lantern Don Quixote, who not only fuels it almost perfectly by herself, but also happens to be Don Quixote's only real Rupture-focused ID. She uses it fantastically, but is unfortunately locked behind Vulpurgisnacht. So if you don't have her right now, you'll either need to borrow her or wait for the next Vulpurgisnacht to pull her. Thankfully, she's a double aught, so it's pretty easy to actually get her when the time is right. Next up, exclusive to the paid battle pass, is Ishmael's 100-footed Death Maggot. It also has a brand new status in Centipede Venom, which stacks up to 20. At the end of the turn, it inflicts 1 defense level down next turn for every 4 stacks, as well as deals gluttony damage by its value before being cut in half. It also transfers to the enemy with the lowest amount if whoever has it is defeated. Overall, a very nice effect for passive damage. 100-footed Death Maggot is a 10-20 rolling Blunt Gloom skill with 2 coins and 3 attack weight that occupies the Zàng slot, meaning it's Ishmael's first Zàng ego aside from Snag Harpoon. It inflicts Centipede Venom by the amount of negative effects on self and the target, plus up to 5 more if you have 4 or more Gloom or Gluttony Resonance. Its real strength is in how cheap it actually is, requiring 20 SP, which is fine, and only a total of 4 Sin resources. We haven't seen an ego that is this spammable since the game's launch with Gregor's Leisure Domain, and it's very easy to begin using this ego every single turn once you have been in battle for a few turns. The passive also allows Ishmael to gain a small amount of offense level up next turn whenever she inflicts sinking or unique sinking, and that's actually really nice as it can add up to an entire clash power and damage up should you have 3 absolute resonance. And while it does inflict both sinking and rupture, you're mainly going to be using this ego for its raw damage potential. The Corrosion is a 16-2 rolling Blunt Gloom skill with 2 coins and 3 attack weight. While it can definitely be used as a cheap attack, there isn't really a reason to. The maximum damage potential is actually lower than the Awakening, and you don't get any extra effect infliction, so it isn't really worth using at all. The best user of this ego is Moeller Boatworks Fixer Ishmael, who can perfectly fuel it on her own, and also is a sinking ID, so she can gain the benefits of the passive. In addition to that, the fact that she's a self-tremor ID means she will pretty much always inflict more Centipede Venom as a result. Realistically though, if you aren't running a Tremor team, then regardless of your ID, this is going to outperform Snag Harpoon in pretty much every department. It's just a matter of how much each ID benefits from it. Reindeer and Butler Ishmael can both take advantage of the passive, and Zwei Ishmael even gets bonus Centipede Venom infliction thanks to being self-Tremor herself. Next up, on the free pass, we have Sinclair's Tears of the Tarnished Blood. This ego comes with 2 new effects, the first of which being Flower Burying Pin. This effect stacks up to 20 and only expires when Sinclair dies or retreats. It increases by 1 at turn end and every time he is hit, and grants 1 offense level up for every 5 stacks. It also makes it so that if Sinclair dies, he inflicts 5 Rupture and deals Gluttony damage by its stack to all enemies, which is somewhat helpful even if it goes against what you'd typically want from an ID. The other effect is very simple. Denial stops Sinclair's HP from dropping below 1 and forcefully unstaggers him if he had become staggered before that point. Then, it kills him at the end of the turn if that effect actually activated. It only lasts until turn end or until Sinclair retreats or is defeated. Tears of the Tarnished Blood is an 8-20 rolling Pierce Gluttony ego with 2 coins and 5 attack weight that can become up to an 8-26 with enough Flower Burying Pin. It occupies the Vav slot. It grants denial at combat start and gives up to 5 Flower Burying Pin based on your Gluttony Resonance before the attack, then deals double the Flower Burying Pin's value to himself as flat damage. What's cool is that not only does this damage not stagger him, but if it dropped him below a stagger threshold, it removes that stagger threshold entirely. The skill itself is actually kind of unimpressive for a VoV Ego when it comes to other effects. It inflicts some Rupture and deals up to 40% more damage based on his missing HP. The impressive part actually comes from when you use it while at either 20 Flower Burying Pin or when below 30% HP. It will reuse the entire skill, and the second coin will consume 100% of Sinclair's HP to deal 20% more damage without needing to pay for it a second time. Sure, it'll kill Sinclair at the end of the turn if it does this, but who really needed him, right? This can result in a massive burst of damage at the cost of Sinclair's life, so we'll have to see if that trade-off ends up being worth it in the long run. This actually segues nicely into the passive as well, which inflicts one fragile next turn to all enemies if Sinclair is defeated. It obviously can only trigger once per encounter, or twice if he's used alongside Wild Hunt Heathcliff. It also passively allows Sinclair to heal 5 SP every turn, provided he either has a negative effect or lost at least 1 HP or SP during the turn. Since the Ego itself takes 10 SP for 3 turns after use, this actually makes the SP cost really low compared to a lot of other VoV Ego in the game. The Corrosion is a 20-4 rolling Pierce Gluttony skill with 2 coins and 7 attack weight that can become a 22-6 with high enough Flower Burying Pin. Outside of gaining up to double the Flower Burying Pin on use, this is effectively exactly the same as the Awakening in terms of effects. While the 2 extra attack weight is nice, once again, you really don't have a reason to use this Corrosion. That said, it is one of the cheapest Corrosions in the game when it comes to using SP, which is a bit of a welcome change compared to the last VoV Ego, which cost 60 SP for a positive coin Corrosion. There are actually 2 Sinclairs who perfectly feel this Ego in Sunk Association South Section 4 Director Sinclair and Lobotomy Ego Red Sheet Sinclair. However, due to the recent heavy nerf of Red Sheet Sinclair and the fact that Sunk Sinclair is not a Rupture ID, the best user is most likely Deviat Sinclair, since he actually inflicts enough Rupture count to maintain it after using the Ego. Plus, since he naturally blows himself up eventually anyways, it's actually helpful for increasing the damage of the Ego. Middle Sinclair also gets a lot of benefit from Tears of the Tarnished Blood, because it is an ID that wants to get hit a lot, and the only way to increase his status is by getting hit repeatedly. And lastly, we have Honglu's Tears of the Tarnished Blood, which is exclusive to the paid Battle Pass. It's the most unique Ego in the game, as it doesn't even target an enemy. Instead, it deals damage based on its role to Honglu, without staggering or killing him in order to gain the new effect Flower Burying Wedge. Flower Burying Wedge starts at 0 and increases by 1 every turn. Regardless of the stack, it grants 2 offense level up and 2 defense level down at turn start. It also makes all coins on Honglu's leftmost skill become unbreakable, which is pretty neat. Notably, its value can only be raised by waiting. Not even using the Ego again will increase the value. If the value is at 3 at turn start, it also grants 1 Tarnished Blood. This effect increases by 1 every turn and stacks up to 5. At the end of the turn, it reduces Honglu's HP by 20% per stack, meaning that it is going to kill him very quickly, but this is actually what you want with this Ego. When Honglu's HP reaches 1, he will activate Tears of the Tarnished Blood, the End, as an unclashable attack at the end of the turn. If it gets reduced to 1 by the Tarnished Blood effect, he uses it when his turn order starts during the next turn instead. Regardless, after the skill ends, Honglu is going to die, and there really aren't a lot of ways to prevent that. This is also the cheapest VoV Ego in the game, costing only 10 SP with no lingering SP loss, and only a total of 7 Sin resources. This is probably to account for the fact that it is going to kill him, and it only provides an admittedly minor passive buff in the meantime. The passive is actually incredibly strong as well. Once per turn, when Honglu defeats an enemy with a skill, he gains 2 haste next turn, applies 1 damage up for the affinity of that skill to all allies next turn, and applies 1 attack power down to all enemies next turn. This is an amazing set of passive bonuses that trigger just naturally during an encounter. Also, when Honglu dies, which is inevitable once you use the Ego, you apply 1 Gluttony and Pierce damage ups to all allies next turn, as well as 1 attack power down to all enemies. It's nice to receive a pretty generous bonus from the inevitable death of Honglu, even if that death isn't necessarily the best outcome depending on the fight. Tears of the Tarnished Blood, the End, is a 4-24 rolling Pierce Gluttony skill with 4 coins and 7 attack weight that can become as high as an 8-39 rolling skill with 10 attack weight, based on the target's Rupture and Honglu's Tarnished Blood. It also deals up to 39% more damage based on his own flower-bearing wedge and tarnished blood values. Simply put, this skill does a ridiculous amount of damage, and it kind of has to make worth sacrificing a unit to use it. It inflicts a ton of Rupture, but is still Rupture count negative by 1, not that that will matter too much, though in a proper Rupture team this can potentially be an even more massive burst of damage as a result. Also, the fact that it can gain up to 10 attack weight is very funny. Also important to note, this doesn't use any ego resources when it gets used, which is very nice. The Corrosion, Tears of the Tarnished Blood Inception, is a 12-4 rolling Pierce Gluttony skill with 4 unbreakable coins and 7 attack weight that can gain up to 2 attack weight based on your highest resonance. It doesn't hit nearly as hard and even loses base power based on how many cracked coins it has when it's used. It's an alternative for gaining Flower-Bearing Wedge that is an actual attack, as opposed to the Awakening which just hits Hong-Lu. It doesn't inflict as much Rupture, but still hits decently hard while costing resources more akin to a traditional VoV ego, such as Blind Obsession. Unlike all the other ego on this pass, I actually can see this Corrosion being kinda useful, since it'll deal damage to every enemy while also gaining the Flower-Bearing Wedge effect. It's mostly going to come down to the situation, though. The best Hong-Lu for this ego is a bit up in the air. He doesn't currently have an ID that perfectly fuels it, but the best IDs for that purpose that he does have are R-Corp 4th Pack Reindeer, Ting Tang Gang Leader, and District 20 Yuridivi. That said, his 2 Rupture IDs in Fang Hunt Office Fixer and K-Corp Class 3 Excision Staff would be the ones who gain the most benefit from the Rupture it inflicts. If anything, K-Corp is the ID who can take advantage of Flower-Bearing the Wedge the longest before it ends up killing him, but the result will be the same no matter who uses it. It feels like a general use ego to me, and since there's no other VoV competing for the slot, you can probably get away with using it on any ID provided your team can fuel it. Just as some general pointers for building a Rupture team, you'll want to bring a bunch of IDs who inflict a lot of Rupture count through the help of their ego and status effects. The best units at doing this are W-Corp Zàng, for his Dimension Shredder allows him to be count positive by quite a bit. All the Heisho Mao IDs are generally Rupture count positive thanks to Deathrite Haste. Bonus points to Heisho Otis, and also 7 Otis for those who don't have Heisho. Ebony Stem is a very powerful ego that allows basically any skill to become Rupture count neutral at minimum thanks to its passive. It's a bit expensive, but not too tough to fuel in a proper Rupture team. Deviat Rodian and Cinq Marceau inflict a decent amount of Rupture count, and also stop consuming Rupture count once the enemy has enough Rupture on them. They're great for dealing damage once the enemy already has a lot of Rupture built up on them from other units. Deviat Sinclair does inflict a lot of Rupture count, but having a Sinclair is actually more useful for inflicting Rupture potency by using Branch of Knowledge, which inflicts 12 potency in a single hit. It is the best skill for inflicting Rupture potency to a single target, which you really do want to have the option of using. Lantern Dawn is obviously really good if you have her, since her skills are almost entirely count neutral or positive. The addition to her Red Sheet ego just makes that even better, as explained earlier. And lastly, Heisho Gregor can inflict a good amount of Rupture count on his own. Bringing Gregor along gives access to his AEDD, which can inflict a good amount of extra Rupture count in the meantime. And while she isn't out yet, keep your eyes on that new Ishmael ID, as it will most likely become a mainstay in any competent Rupture team. If you're missing any of those, here on screen is a bunch of other Rupture IDs that are also very solid for the team if you need somebody to fill up those last couple of slots. None of them are preferable, but all of them can fulfill the role if you need them to. And that's about all I have to say about this Battle Pass. I personally think it's a pretty good deal if you want to invest only the absolute minimum amount of money into the game, but when it comes to real money purchases, you should always use your own judgment for something like this. These ego are undeniably strong, if a little bit awkward to use for the VoV one specifically, and so I've included what I think are the best users with that ego maxed out in my company if you want to try them out. In any case, let me know what you think about all of them in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe as it helps me out a lot. And hey, if you're watching this during the month of June, me and a bunch of other Project Moon content creators are currently doing a charity marathon for Outright International called Absolute Pride Resonance. We're going to be playing a bunch of games the entire month, and if this was uploaded on June 1st, the first stream actually is later today on Sunol's channel, so be sure to go check that out as well. Thank you for watching my video, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you again soon.